All over the world, women want to know one thing. It's time to help a lover out. How the heck can they get a guy to chase them? Today I'm going to teach you 6 of my best tips on how to accomplish that goal. Here is how to make him chase you in a relationship. Perhaps the best part is that you won't have to manipulate your man at all to get him to chase you. Are you ready? The 6 fastest ways to get a man to chase you. I want you to think of me as a spy who can tell you what's going on in the mind of the guy you are falling for. Generally speaking, what would work on me would work on any guy you are going after. So, before I start blowing your mind with concepts you've probably never heard before, I'd like to make a pact with you. I promise to tell you everything that is going on in your man's head. In other words, even if the truth is something that no one else will tell you, I assure you, I will. Deal. Okay, before we get started, here is a list of the strategies you should employ to get your guy chasing you. 1. Accept that the daydream effect is everything. 2. Adopt the mindset, you have to be willing to lose the guy to get the guy. 3. Understand the science of playing hard to get. 4. Be 70% transparent with him. 5. Find a way to make him scared he'll lose you forever. 6. Create a sense of urgency through scarcity. I know it can seem like a lot, but don't be overwhelmed. I'm going to take you through this list step by step. Let's begin. Tip number 1. The daydream effect is everything. Making a guy chase you is not as easy as you think. When I think back on my life, there are literally only a handful of women that I have actively chased. Usually, I'd fail in my chase, but that is a story for another time. Overall, when I think back on the girls I've chased, there is one consistency that comes to mind: the daydream effect. So, what is this? The daydream effect, the feeling you get when you find yourself constantly daydreaming about the potential of a relationship with the target of your affections and what a future with them might look like. I'll point out, I married the last person that I daydreamed about. I remember the experience very clearly. I would think about what she would look like walking. I'd picture what it would be like to wake up next to her. I'd spend hours daydreaming about what it would be like to go on adventures together. I'd even find myself just thinking about the way she smells. It seemed like for a while my entire existence was consumed by thinking about her. That's the power of the daydream effect. The feeling can be so strong that it can make most men take drastic action. Such as asking you out on a date, kissing you, asking you to be their girlfriends, sometimes even asking you marry them. Sir, how do you create the daydream effect? It's actually really easy. You have to cultivate a desirable image that your guy feels like he can't ever achieve. A real-life example of the daydream effect, like I said before, my wife was the last person that had this impact on me. I want to get really candid and tell you exactly how she did it. So, to give you some quick background on our relationship, we actually met through friends on Facebook. I lived in Texas and she lived in Pennsylvania. Already, you can see the distance divide that bled into me not having her. The first time I noticed her was on Christmas Day. Someone had posted a video of her as she was giving her niece a gift. Weirdly enough, I still remember how great her posture was and how she almost seemed more excited to give the gift than to receive any gifts herself. Which, if I'm being totally honest, is nothing like me. I remember thinking, now that is the type of girl you marry. She was obviously very attractive and had all these incredible pictures up on Facebook. I would look at those pictures and just daydream about what it would be like to have her on my arm. She was always really easy to talk to, but I always got the sense that she was out of my league. Sometimes, I would even get jealous of the pictures that she had taken with other attractive men in the past. Everything about her just made her seem more like an alpha. Next to her, I felt like a beta. She was sweet too. She had an incredible personality, too. And yet, somehow, I always felt that she was better than me. It's been said, men don't daydream about finding coal. They daydream about finding gold. Well, I felt like I had found gold. I daydreamed every single day that I would get a chance to talk to her. I got butterflies in my stomach all of the time. It didn't help that I was constantly checking out her Facebook profile. She had cultivated the ideal image of what I wanted in a woman. Make of that what you will. Tip number 2, you have to be willing to lose the guy to get the guy. If you really think about it, business and relationships have a lot in common. They are both about leverage. Generally speaking, whoever has the leverage ends up with the better outcome. For relationships, that leverage would be not caring enough to stay or being willing to walk away. In my real-life example above with the daydream effect, I mentioned that I daydreamed about my wife. The primary motivation behind all of that daydreaming was the fact that I felt like she was way out of my league. Why did I feel that way? Well, I felt like she would have more options if we both tried to get someone else. And I felt like she was more than willing to lose me at the beginning. That's the basis of what it took to make me feel like she was out of my league. Most of the women I work with coaching are too afraid to lose the guys they want to chase them. They put so much of their emotions into the basket with this one guy that it actually gives him power over them. If you want a guy to chase you, you have to be willing to lose that guy. You can't put him on a pedestal like he is some god. He's a human being and replaceable. Beyoncé was onto something with her song, Irreplaceable. You have to realize, it's not him that is irreplaceable. It's you. Most women are too afraid to take that risk, but it's a risk that you always have to take to get the outcome you want. Here's the craziest part: when you do finally take the plunge and adopt this mindset, it allows you to look at things in a new way. But just pretending won't be enough. You actually have to be willing to lose your guy forever. Tip number 3, understand the science of playing hard to get. Thus far, I've only been talking about feelings and emotions. Now, I'd like to switch gears and talk a little bit about science. Specifically, I want to talk about the science of playing hard to get. There's a percentage of women that believe you shouldn't play games with someone you care about to get them to chase you or to make them fall in love with you. I understand that. But, from my point of view, it isn't my job to debate the morality of these tactics with you. It's my job to present the facts about what works and allow you to decide to whether to use what I give you or not. So, what I'm about to cover here might rub people the wrong way, but I don't want you to let that ruin it for you. Playing hard to get works, and it works extremely well. That is a pretty bold statement, I know. But, I actually have the science to back it up. There are 2 principles that will prove my point. 1. The theory of reactance. 2. The uncertainty principle. Both of these psychological principles can be used to prove that playing hard to get actually works. Let's tackle the theory of reactance first. Playing hard to get and the theory of reactance. If you didn't already know, reactance is something I talk a lot about with regards to the no contact rule. Here's the gist. Theory of reactance: human beings have certain behavioral freedoms, and when they feel one of those behavioral freedoms come under attack, they react in a way to get that freedom back. How does it help us for our purposes? If a guy feels like you will always be there, then that behavioral freedom will become set in his mind. He will expect you to be there no matter what he does. However, when you play hard to get, that behavioral freedom gets interrupted, and it makes him more likely to try to get that freedom back. In a perfect world, you can create a reactance pattern which looks something like this. Essentially, you switch from making your guy feel like he has you and then doing something to make him feel like he doesn't have you. The uncertainty principle and playing hard to get. If you feel like the theory of reactance wasn't enough to sell you on playing hard to get, perhaps this next concept will. The uncertainty principle, a psychological theory that proves human beings tend to obsess about uncertain variables, as opposed to certain variables. The uncertainty principle was made famous for its rat experiment, which I talk about in this video. Essentially, 2 rats were made to go through 2 mazes. One was very simple. You can't get any simpler than that. And the other maze was very complex. If the rats completed the maze, they got cheese. Scientists wanted to determine if certain variables had more impact than uncertain principles. Interestingly enough, they found that the rat with the easy maze didn't initially eat the cheese it found at the end of its maze. This contrasted with the rat in the other more complicated maze, as it devoured the cheese upon finding it. Scientists believe that the rat with the certainty of cheese found the cheese less attractive than the one who had to work to get the cheese. Men are kind of like that. They tend to value that which they don't have or what they have to work for. Tip number 4, be 70% transparent with him. Now, you may be sitting there and wondering how you can go about playing hard to get, or creating enough mystery to make him intrigued. I'd like to introduce you to my 70/30ths rule. Have you ever seen the movie Hitch? There's this scene in there where Will Smith's character talks about the 90/10ths rule when he is trying to teach a guy how to kiss a girl. The 70/30ths rule is a little like that, except it's all about transparency. With tip number 3, I discussed the importance of playing hard to get, but I really didn't cover how you should go about doing that. The best thing you can do is create a little mystery by holding a little bit of yourself back. Dating is like playing emotional chess. The biggest mistake that most women make is that they throw themselves into relationships full force and don't hold anything back. Normally, this wouldn't be that big of an issue, except that when the feelings aren't reciprocated, the hurt is amplified 10 times over. Not to mention, no guy is going to be attracted to a woman that he feels like he knows everything about. Consider the difference between being in the friend zone and being a girlfriend. Often if you are in the friend zone, your guy knows everything about you already. Girlfriends can be the same way, however they don't give everything up right away. Look at it like this. If you let the object of your affection see 70% of yourself right off the bat, but then you progressively allow him to peel back the layers on the extra 30%, it's so much more intriguing. Why do we get wrapped up in mystery stories? Often, it is for this very reason. We want to find out what happens next. You need to create this phenomenon with a guy if you want him to chase you. Tip number 5. Find a way to make him feel he will lose you forever. A few tips ago I talked about the importance of adopting the mindset that you have to be willing to lose the guy to get the guy. This is the other side of the coin. In my research I've found that there are 6 factors that generally make men commit. Satisfaction, alternatives, investment, scarcity, urgency, fear of loss. Now, I don't have time to talk about every single one of these factors, but I would like to focus on one of them today: fear of loss. Fear of loss, a sense of loss within a man that makes him realize your value. As human beings we have this pesky quality of taking things for granted. Often, it's only when we think that we are about to lose something forever that we have begin to realize its true value. Now, I'm going to end this tip a bit prematurely because really tip number 5 and tip number 6 blend together. Tip number 6, create a sense of urgency through scarcity. Scarcity is really just another way of showing the man that you want to chase you that you are a hot commodity. Having other men enter the competition for your heart is essential if you want a guy to chase you. Why? With tip number 5 I talked about the importance of instituting a fear of loss. But how? Well, often that's by convincing the man you want to chase you that another man can swoop you off your feet. This creates an urgent reason for commitment. Now, I've seen women completely mess this advice up by making out with another guy in front of the guy they really want. Less is more here. It doesn't take a lot of jealousy to get stirred, so don't play with fire just yet. If he simply thinks that there might be a possibility that you'll be off the market soon, your value will go up in his eyes. He'll have to get to you first. I hope these tips were helpful. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more videos like this.